see the world through other people's eyes. Now, empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.
Good morning and welcome to Artifact Live with me, Scott McArthur, where we explore the art and the science of storytelling together. It's great to be back. It's been 2 weeks since I've done a version of the show, but I've got a pretty good excuse for that. So I'm going to start by talking about that for a little while. But this week we're getting into one of the theory parts of storytelling. So we're going to, it might be a shorter show because I just want to give you a feel for one particular aspect of storytelling. But let me tell you what happened in the last 2 weeks. As I often do at the beginning of my shows, I let you know what's been happening. You know, what have I been doing? Have I been speaking that week? Or am I doing a keynote or whatever? And for the last 2 weeks, the reason I didn't have the show and I did some replays, and thank you incidentally to everyone who watched the replays. I've had some cracking feedback. It's funny because I think sometimes I forget, like many people, that what you've done in the past isn't just done and forgotten. You can bring it back, and because you know everyone hasn't seen your work in the past, so sometimes it's really a good idea to replay some of your material. And I've learned that with my music show on a Friday night, and with this show where I now do them both as a replay later on in the week, and both shows do really well on replay. So there's a lesson there. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, I started this little period of work with two new clients. The first one was a company called Kuleshov. Now, I had never heard of Kuleshov. They're actually one of the biggest transport companies in Europe, and I had never heard of them. They've just bought Eddie Stobart, who everyone has heard of because of the television shows, etc., etc. So I was working there, and the reason I couldn't do the show because I was on my feet at the time. When the show normally broadcasts on a Tuesday morning. But I went along and we were in a golf resort up in the northwest, and it was quite nice. It was a bit odd doing a live situation again. It was the first one that I'd done probably in a year. I did one down in the Gatwick Business Group about a year ago, but this is the first one that I had done in front of people. Now, there must have been, I don't know, 150 people there maybe. So it wasn't a huge audience, and it was in banquet style. So it wasn't an imposing environment when you walked in. But my goodness, I was nervous. Oh God. Now I always get nervous when I'm speaking and telling stories, but I was really nervous to the point of being really quite worried about it. So what I did, I went down the night before, and it so happened that the main client, who's the CIO of Kuleshov in the UK, also was there. So we met and we had a chat. And that very, very quickly put my sort of inner nerves at rest. Now, despite the fact I was being all business-like, I had my nice suit on and all the rest of it. But I think that really helped. So that sort of stakeholder management part where I went and spoke to the guy before. But the key thing and the lesson here, I think, is that when you get to know somebody you're going to be working with in this sort of storytelling world, and you're going to be sharing ideas and you're going to be trying to influence them using stories. Remember my facts tell, stories sell, which we discussed 2 weeks ago with Rob Brina. It was a really interesting discussion, that. But I got underneath him and I got to know what he was all about. And then when I got on stage, I had two roles. It was quite unusual, certainly for me in the last 2 or 3 years. So it was almost like gone back, hopefully to go forward again. But I was actually facilitating the event, emceeing the event. Now, it's something I don't mind doing, but it's not my forte. There are people much better than I am at it. So I kind of stick to doing keynotes these days. But I was doing the emceeing, and I was again really nervous. But the group were cheeky. They were challenging. There was a lot of questions coming from the floor, and actually that put me at ease. So again, I think at the moment the lesson for everybody and it's not just storytellers, it's for everybody in the sort of the L&D space, the marketing space, the pitching space, the consulting space, the teaching space, anywhere where we've moved online like this. I think getting back into it, although it's a little bit difficult, it's a bit like me putting on my jacket when I've put on weight over lockdown. I know that weight's going to come back off again. I know I'm going to get back in the groove, and I know I'm going to get fighting fit again. But I think getting on with it is the key thing. And it was great because I got to the end and I'd spent a lot of time with this guy, the key client, and he was nervous. It was his first big event. He was putting a lot of faith in me as a storyteller to inspire his group, to help him get his key messages across. And I did my keynote at the end. The keynote was a fairly standard piece about the future of work. So I was speaking about analog technologies, and I was speaking about how we need to be thinking more about exponential technologies, like I've spoken on here before, like biotech, nanotech, AI. And it went down really, really well, and I got some terrific feedback. So that was the first one. The second one was just this week, just gone. And that was with one of the leading companies in the automation space, a company called Blue Prism. Totally different kettle of fish. These are people who are moving at such a pace that and this is just an opinion. Doesn't mean it's absolutely right, but that sort of company are on an exponential growth phase, or at least they're aspirational to go in that sort of space, that sort of pace of growth. Very difficult for a company to do that, and even more difficult for a company to have any sort of sense of culture or structure or clarity, particularly about responsibilities and accountabilities. So it's a really different environment from the transportation company that I did the previous week. But the key thing, and it was really great because I was helping them look at their vision, their mission, their structure, their organizational design aspirations. And one of the key things was they just couldn't get clear about what their vision was. They couldn't get there. And I had facilitated it for about maybe an hour and a half, and they had all these ideas and they had them all over the wall. It was pretty good with lots of words. But then I went into artifact mode and I said, right, what I'm going to get you to do now, folks, is I'm going to ask you to role play. I'm going to ask you to think about meeting a customer and saying to the customer that you've never met before, a response to the customer, what is it that they were called Blue Prism? What is it that Blue Prism does? Now, they all sat there, and I don't think they'd ever done it before. They'd never sort of pretended they were in different roles, so they weren't used to role playing. It's not surprising. These guys are on this trajectory, so they don't got a lot of time to come. In fact, it was the first time they'd ever been. All of them had been in the room, bar three of the American colleagues who were on Teams. I'm going to come back to that. But they all sat there, and they were a bit clunky at first, but they really then got into it, and we started to take things down the natural type of questions that you ask people when you're trying to get them to tell you a story, to get them to tell a story that makes sense. So, for example, what is it you do? Well, and what we came up with was we help our clients to reimagine your future or reimagine your business. It was that around that sort of area. So I had a chat. What does that mean? What does reimagine mean? What does the future mean? And what do you think they would say? And they would say, well, how do you do that? Well, how do you do that? And I got them to think about their technologies, and they're in the sort of the digital worker space and the automation space and some of the sort of AI type services space. So I said, okay, explain to that client what that means. And again, well, it's automation. What does that mean? And I kept asking them, though, what does it mean? Why do you do it? What's it for? What are the outcomes? Types of questions. And the challenge was to get them to tell stories. They really struggled. They got the vision part. Reimagining your business. They got that, and they understood how that is what I call a generative statement. It enables people to tell, it encourages people to tell stories. But the rest of it, they're still working on it because they are so deep in complexity and growth and, doing this with acquisition, etc., that I don't think they've had time, like many of us, not just that company, every company nearly has not had time to raise its head and actually think about what it actually does and to tell stories about it. So that was the last 2 weeks. And I think it helped me because it really got me thinking about, am I doing the right thing with people? Am I helping people? Am I just, making something up that's not going to be of any value. And Rob, 2 weeks ago, Rob challenged the role of a storyteller. He said, well, look, the storyteller is a good idea, but it's got to be built on a solid platform. Here, because if you're not built on a solid platform, you become like a guru, like a magician, like a somebody who's got charisma, but there's nothing underneath that charisma. And I certainly think in the corporate world, just telling charismatic stories is never going to do you any good. It can help in the short term, a bit like the sort of Tony Robbins type thing, but getting the sort of the longevity is very, very difficult. So therefore, I think that feeling that I had been developing, I think, became clearer for me working with those clients. And I said I'd come back to the Teams thing. So not only is Teams still really clunky technology, I think it's the poorest of the sort of the big 4 or 5, like the Zooms and the other systems out there. It's a really clunky system, and having 3 people in a hotel room, thousands of miles away, beaming into an event, I don't think it worked. And I know a lot of people are talking about having these blended events, and I get it. I get the environmental benefits of it. I get the cost benefits of it. I get the well-being benefits of it, but I still am not sure if it's the way forward, because particularly a major event, particularly it's something where there's something really important being discussed, the interaction that we had, not only in the conference suites, but also in the restaurant, in the wine bar, in the gardens, walking around. That was where a lot of the real stories came out. That's where I found out about what the real challenges were. And do you get that over online? No, you don't, because you don't. Even if you have breakouts, even if you have waiting rooms and you have reception areas and you have, really, and I've said positive things about this before. You have online like networking events where you blind date people, or it's like one of these. You go in and somebody random comes in. They're good, but it doesn't touch. At the moment, it doesn't touch the one-to-one basis. So, and of course, that was difficult for them as well, because they're in the digital worker space. So they're actually trying to encourage people to use technology, digital technology. So it's all very interesting. So anyway, sorry that was a bit of a longer introduction than normal, but I think getting out there and doing some real stuff is actually really important. And this is real stuff, but doing it with real people and in a touch environment is something that I think we should all be reflecting on. So this week, well, I promised at the beginning I'm going to dive into something, and I'm going to dive, but I'm not doing a deep dive, because I just don't think we need to do that. But nevertheless, this show and tell idea, I want to explain a little bit more to you about this. This came to me. It's a recognized technique, mainly in filmmaking, and it's called the Kuleshov Effect, and it's a way of using editing to create a mood, using editing and the context in which you show various pictures. It's a way to create a mood. Now, I've been using that. I came across it probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I was watching a documentary about Hitchcock. Now, I know Hitchcock's not everyone's cup of tea these days, and I don't think he's mine either, but I do like his films. He was a genius filmmaker. And there was a documentary, you may have seen it, about Hitchcock, and he talked about the Kuleshov Effect, named after a Russian film act, Lev Kuleshov. And he talked about how he used it. So I'm going to show you a little clip from that documentary, actually, because I think Hitchcock tells it better than I do. And then we'll come back and we'll reflect on that together. So here's Hitchcock explaining the show and tell editing technique for storytellers.
Now, the third way is what one might call pure cinematics, the assembly of film, and how it can be changed to create a different idea. Now, we have a close-up. Let me show what he sees. Let's assume he saw a woman holding a baby in her arms. Now we cut back to his reaction to what he sees, and he smiles. Now, what is he as a character? He's a kindly man. He's sympathetic. Now, let's take the middle piece of film away, the woman with the child, but leave his two pieces of film as they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now? The dirty old man. He's no longer the benign gentleman who loves babies. That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
Or you for it, as it were.
Now, I recognise the irony in how his reputation is something of a bad chap over the last few years in that film, but it demonstrates it quite well, how showing two things opposite each other in the edit can really start to create what I like to call the atmosphere of the story. The sort of one of the foundations of storytelling is how to create the atmosphere, and I think this particular Kuleshov effect is quite powerful for that. Now, the way I use this, let's go back a step. Master filmmakers are brilliant at it, because you'll see often close up, you'll get a mid shot, then a close up shot, and then they show something in the middle. And people like Spielberg and I mean, the Alien films are brilliant at this, and they create tension by showing something bubbling in a corner and the person walking down a room, cut to the bubbling thing, walking down the room further, the bubbling thing, opening the door, bang. And probably my favorite example was in Silence of the Lambs, when Clarice, if you've never seen the film, then it's a great film to watch. But Clarice, the main character, she is looking for Dr. Lecter, looking for this killer, and she goes to this house and she knocks on the door, and at the same time it cuts to the police hiding outside a house. And as she's knocking on the door, you then see the police banging the door in and rushing in. And the police run in and they're all around the house with their guns and they're checking clear, clear, clear. And then she bangs the door and it opens and it's someone else. It's a different house. So it's a really powerful way of distracting people. It's making how one of the other filmmakers, Werner Herzog, what he said, it's a way to make 2 + 2 = 5. When you're telling a story, it's a way to trick the human mind to be scared, to be relaxed, whatever it is, and then just with the final edit, it switches to something that's surprising. The other good example, if you may have seen the film Buried, I can't say that in an English accent. No, Buried, I can't say it in English. And this is where the character, the protagonist, has been buried in a coffin under the ground, and he's trying to escape, and the others are trying to find him. They find something in the ground. They're digging. They find something. They open it, and it's not him. Whereas in the other shot, he's relieved because he thinks they're coming to save him. They're not. And then the film finishes. So they're versions of the Kuleshov effect. So how do I use it? Well, I kind of use it in a sort of, well, obviously I use Artefact, and there's an artifact here I'm just going to use in a minute. In fact, I'll show you it now. A lot of my talks, what I do is I try to bring artifacts which I make very visible. So if you've seen me doing a keynote, you've probably seen me with an elephant, or you might have seen me with my Dementor here, or my my egg timer there, or my skull here. These are ones I use a lot, and I usually lay them out so people can see them. I don't try to hide them. I don't do ta-ta. That's another technique, but I don't tend to do it with these artifacts, because what I'm trying to do is pique people's curiosity. So if I'm using this, it's a standard snow globe. Now, what I'll normally do is I'll put this at the front of the room, and I'll put, this is the one I use for the Kalina group. So this is the Kalina logo, and I'll put that just at the front, just in front of the podium where I'm going to be, where I'm going to be introduced, or on a table at the side or something. But I want people to see it, and quite often they'll go up and they'll go, "Oh, that's interesting," and they'll look at it, and you can watch them, being into. I mean, I had it nicked once. Somebody liked it so much they nicked it anyway. And but anyway, that's a story I can't sometimes tell when I do a keynote these days. But anyway, so they go up and they touch it, and then halfway through the show, when I get on and I'm doing my speech, I'll reach for the artifact. I don't always. I'll come back to that, but I'll reach for the artifact, and I'll maybe look at it, show them it like this. And the name of the conference last week was Foundation, which we wanted to use that because that was about them setting the ground for the way forward for them. So it seemed to resonate with the chief exec. But then I'll pick it up and I'll very gently say, "Look, did anyone notice this?" And nearly every hand in the room goes up. And of course, they've got no idea. They think it's just a trinket. Of course, then I shake it. And I'll say to them, "Oh, what do you think I did this for?" Now, there's a number of things I can go to here, but often I'll turn it, not this example, I'll turn it round. And in there will be either a drawing that one of my pals has done for me that shows this company and how it feels to work there, or at least suggests how it might feel. Or I might have a picture of the human brain there, and then I shake it again and they go, "Oh, I'm starting to understand what you're getting at, Scott." And I'll get questions like, "Well, you're trying to demonstrate that, we can't always think clearly." Yes. And then you start a dialogue with the audience. So what this does, it kind of gets them to think, what on earth's he doing? They dismiss it almost. And then sometimes it really starts a powerful conversation. So I know it's not pure Kuleshov, but it's close to the Kuleshov effect, because I think giving an audience a surprise is quite an important thing to do. Now, one of my first shows, I think it was week 5 or maybe week 6, we spoke about introductions and how stories, the beginning of a story is really important because it's the bit that hooks them. And I try and do, I guess it's a blend of the Kuleshov effect and classic storytelling to hook them. So, for example, when I did my TEDx talk in Telford, I started my talk by saying, "I'm going to tell you a story about my grandfather's foot." And I paused and I showed a picture, right? And the picture didn't match the words. So I showed a picture of a brain. So the audience is looking and they're going, "What's he doing?" So you've immediately got the curiosity, and then they're starting to fill in the bits. They're starting to try and understand what you're trying to say. And that's what Hitchcock, and there's another one, a classic one, it's not Hitchcock. It's where, again, there's a picture of a man's face, and then there's a picture of a bowl of soup. Then it says, "What is going on in this scene?" And then, well, you can do it now. I mean, you can do it with me if you want to play along. There's a picture of a man's face, then a bowl of soup. And the film director is trying to get you to think about, or at least create in your own head, imagine what is going on in that scene. But then there's the same picture of the man, and then there's a baby in a coffin. So it's quite dramatic. They use this at film school. There's a baby in a coffin. So what is going through the man's head now? And then finally, there's a picture of the same man's face, but there's a picture of a beautiful girl in a bikini. What's going through his mind? And a bit like what Hitchcock did at the beginning of today's show, you're taken through just those juxtaposition of two things is incredibly powerful. And that's how I use it when I'm speaking. I've never really used it on podcasts. I've not quite worked out how to build it into the oral arts, but certainly in any of the visual arts, using juxtapositions of things is really powerful. And of course, it can often get a laugh as well. I mean, I remember when I did that TEDx and I showed the picture of the brain. I didn't get a laugh, but they're all going, "What?" And I love it. That's a very Scottish curiosity thing. What's he doing? And the minute you've got them curious, bang, you've got them. You've got them. And it's why the old-fashioned thing of saying, "Today I'm going to tell you about," just doesn't work anymore. People need their curiosity to be piqued, even just tiny prods, and you've got them hopefully for the rest of the talk. So I'm just going to pause for a sec. I see there's some questions come in. Let's see what people are saying. Is there a replay, Scott? Yes, there is. I'll have a replay on probably later on this week. I'll drop you a note, Doug. Thanks, Richard. Sorry. Thanks for asking. I will drop you a note and you can watch it later. I'll look you up and find you and drop you a note. But yeah, so the key thing here is don't try and overcomplicate things, but try and think through how you create, remember, foundation, creating the atmosphere that you wish to be in that story, or how you want the person to think can be hugely influenced just by juxtaposing two different images. And that can be visual, or it can be static, or it can be me as the keynote speaker and my screen. It doesn't matter. You can do it in any of those particular contexts. So that's it. I really don't want to jump into great detail this week, because it's something that I just want you to go away and think about it. I want you to go away and get curious about it. Have a look for Kuleshov. It's I'll put his name in. Actually, I should have done this, shouldn't I? I'll just stick his name in the chat on the screen for everybody, because it's quite obviously spelling it can be. It's actually quite. It actually makes sense when you see it written down. It's quite straightforward. Let me just do this. And there's a lot of it online. You'll find it, there's a Wikipedia page about it. There's lots and lots of videos on YouTube about the Kuleshov Effect. So it's easy to find, but have a look at it and just think how you could apply that to things that you're doing, whether it's in telling stories around a campfire like we are today, or whether you're doing that in the context of a pitch, or you're doing it in context of trying to influence somebody. That juxtaposition can really, really work. Now, there's a few other things I would like to tell you about. And I'd like to just push you towards some bits and pieces. My YouTube channel is up and running. It's going really well at the moment. I'm very proud of it. It's www.youtube.com/ScottMcArthur. What I do there, what I'm trying to do, and I'm building this, it's becoming, I've been asked an awful lot of questions at the moment, and I have to be honest, I've been here before, haven't I? I'm probably going to change some of the emphasis a little bit. This YouTube short thing, it's all over the place. The shorts are the in thing. And I've done a few and they went down really well. But I think I'm going to do something different about it. And I think I'm actually going to do some technical shorts. And I'm probably going to use it either for technical story shorts, or maybe how to use Restream, the system I'm using right now on shorts, because I think there's a market for it. People are asking me about it. I know Restream have asked me to do it, and I'm not sure I want to get into bed with a particular company, but I'm thinking about the technical side of it. But story shorts might be something that could work. So keep your eye on my YouTube channel. It's going to develop. I'm also about to start I've been commissioned to make 15 short films by a client. That's going to be really challenging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a how-to thing. I'm going to do this sort of follow me on this journey as I try to make these 15 films. I'll be starting to film that this afternoon, hence why I've got my shirt on. And it's a bit of a challenge for me. I've had to invest a bit, which is something I've resisted largely. I make most of my films using my iPhone, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I've actually invested in a little bit of kit to help make that better. So let's see. I'll probably do a camera review. It's that sort of thing I'm going to get into, because people are just curious about it and how I'm doing it. So I'm going to match that curiosity. I think it's important to do that. But also, these 15 short films I'm making, what will inevitably happen in my experience in the last 12 months of filmmaking has taught me that I'll probably shoot 20 minutes film for a 3-minute video. So there's going to be a lot of film there that I can use, that I can share with you, and we can put on the YouTube channel. So please, if you get a chance, have a pop over there and have a look. And if you could subscribe, hit the little bell ding, and you'll get notified of anything that I do in the future. There's a little comment here from Richard. Hi, Richard. Love the imagery that can be created. Thanks. Absolutely, Richard. That's exactly the point. It's about thinking about the person that you're talking to, and it's exactly what happened when I did it with that executive group last week. I got them to really role play what it would be like as someone they met, and how that person would respond to their corporate vision, and how they would help create a story in that person's head that would allow them to continue the conversation. So it's a good point you make. Thank you very much, Richard. Now, the other thing I'm involved in, and I'm going to show you some feedback from it. I started, those of you who follow regularly will know that I've started to do every last Thursday of every month. I do a storytelling at work event. Now, this is on the Funzing platform, which is, it doesn't matter if you've never heard of Funzing, but I'll put a little caption up here. I've got a little caption here. Fundsing is just it used to be a live platform where they would hire venues for you, and I did a pub tour in 2019. I did 30 different venues across the country, but now they've gone online. They've re-emerged. They went out of business, but they've re-emerged as an online platform. So at the end of every month, I'm doing one of these, and it's gone really well. And I'll just show you a little film. I like my films, don't I? I'll show you a little film of some of the feedback that I got, and I think a couple of you actually came along. Now, ironically, at my end, that film froze, so I'm not sure if you were able to see the feedback. So when I get a chance to edit this little piece, I'll stick in the film so it makes sure it runs. This is one of the things you learn when you start doing live broadcasting, that sometimes things just don't work. You know, I was on here the other day, and I was talking to a company, and we were talking about, it was insurance, and they were talking about, you know, what's been happening and how difficult it is in the insurance market, like it is in every other environment. And somebody mentioned an act of God, and of course I was like, what's an act of God? And just as I asked that question, I've got these LPs up here that you can't see that are all over this wall, all my favorite albums, and one of them fell and bounced off my head. So these things happen in the live moment when you're doing live broadcasting, and you just got to get used to it. But anyway, I think if you get a chance, oh, thank you. If someone said saw it fine, thank you. If you get a chance to come along at the end of the month, that'd be terrific. I'm quite pleased with that. It's going to develop. I'm going to try and build. I've built a second one, which is not about storytelling. It's about core consulting. So I'm doing a second one, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 1 hour technical storytelling sessions. So like the Kuleshov Effect, I might do a little bit more and go into a little bit more depth, and then get you to do an exercise. And because this sort of show isn't really built for doing live exercises, but on the live event like that, I could do some exercises with you. So that's what I'm thinking about doing. I haven't made my mind up yet, but I'm getting close to being sure that's what I want to do. So I'll just check the chat once more and see if there are any questions. Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much for you as well. That's great. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you found that useful, and I'll be back again next week. And I think I'm going to have a guest. She said yes, but I'm not going to tell you who it is yet, because I just need to confirm that it's the right thing to do. So thank you very much for tuning in to Artefact Live with me, Scott McArthur, where we look at the art and the science of storytelling, and we really try and make it practical and useful from everybody who wants to make progress, who wants to influence things in their life. And remember, as I always say at the end, I hope you have a story-filled week, and I hope you spot some stories, because you know what? Those stories can change the world. I'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.